Hello everyone and welcome to our live online subject spotlight sociology session on a natural disaster, the sociology of COVID-19, as part of the University of Chester's online kitchen sessions programme. My name is Mags and I am one of the schools and colleges liaison assistants at the university, and today I am joined by Dr Joe Rigby, lecturer for sociology, who will be delivering the session. Say hello, Joe.
Hi there.
You'll see him shortly, and Zoe, who will be moderating any questions as they come in. Say hello, Zoe.
Hi everyone.
In terms of how today will work, I will shortly be handing over to Joe for the presentation, and during the presentation you will be given the opportunity to ask questions in the chat function on the right hand side of the screen. Your audio and video won't be shared, but you can ask questions anonymously if you wish. You just need to tick the box to say that you wish to be anonymous. You can like other questions that people may have asked and answer any questions that Joe may ask by responding in the chat function. So we will collate any questions and ask Joe these at the end of the session. If there is not time to answer all questions, they will be published on the website at a later date. At the very end, you will have the opportunity to complete a short evaluation form. Any links that we put up during the presentation will also be available on the recording. Okay, I think we're ready to start, so it's over to you, Joe.
Hi everyone, my name is Joe. I'm a lecturer in sociology at the University of Chester. The title of my talk today is A Natural Disaster, the Sociology of COVID-19. In what follows, I want to explore how thinking sociologically can help us challenge many of the assumptions and ideas that structure the way we talk about and the way we understand the current coronavirus crisis and its effects. As the title of my talk might suggest, I want to question the idea that the coronavirus crisis is in any way a natural disaster. The origins, spread and impacts of COVID-19 are deeply bound up with the way we live and organise ourselves on both a local and global scale. It's worth saying to start off with, I think, that for many sociologists, this is an uncontentious argument that I'm going to make today. Indeed, for many sociologists, there is no such thing really as a natural disaster, however counterintuitive such a thing may seem at first glance. Think about things such as earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, catastrophic weather events. Surely these things are natural disasters. However, when you think about the effects of natural disasters and how the severity of natural disasters is bound up with and profoundly shaped by our knowledge of them and how we organise our responses to them, then these things start to look less and less like purely natural phenomena and events. Think, for instance, of the Indian Ocean tsunami of 2004. Triggered by a massive undersea earthquake, the tsunami which resulted from the earthquake killed some 230,000 people. However, the impacts of this tsunami and this earthquake could have been far less severe had there been an early warning system in place and an evacuation plan properly carried out. In 2004, the Indian Ocean tsunami resulted in such a high death toll because of poverty and international power politics shaped the response to the so-called natural disaster. Or if you think about contemporary weather events, so more and more of us will be familiar with the way in which phenomena such as hurricanes, droughts, wildfires and flooding are often now associated with human-caused climate change. You know, in the 21st century, it's very rare to conceive of the weather as an entirely natural phenomena. Human activity shapes and conditions the kinds of weather that we experience. And so this is what I want to do with COVID-19. I want to challenge the idea that the coronavirus is in any way a natural disaster, and rather trace the ways in which the origins, spread and impacts of COVID-19 are deeply bound up with the nature of our social relations today. We can begin by looking at the origins of the coronavirus. Where does the coronavirus come from? Is it a conspiracy? Was it a laboratory accident? Or is there something about the way we live and organise our societies and economies that has created the conditions for this to happen? Sociologists such as Mike Davis and Rob Wallace have been warning for some 10 to 15 years now that the combination of deforestation, urbanisation and industrialised agriculture have created the perfect conditions for the outbreak of pandemics such as the current one, and which our world is currently clearly ill-equipped to deal with. Following the insights of sociologists such as Davis and Wallace, I think it's possible to see how the current coronavirus crisis is very much a product of our social relations. So what does it mean to say that the coronavirus is a product of our social relations? A little bit of virology is important here. In the scientific community worldwide, there is a near consensus that the new coronavirus strain, known as SARS-CoV-2, COVID-19 being the name of the disease that it causes, originated first in bats, before then infecting humans, a process called zoonosis. As an international team of microbiologists and immunologists led by Professor Christian Andersen argued back in March of this year, the complexity of the SARS-CoV-2 spike protein and the way it has been specifically optimized for binding to human-like ACE2 cells developed most likely as a result of natural selection. That is, in other words, the spikes shown on the familiar microscopic images of coronavirus cells are so well adapted to fit with human cells in the human respiratory tract that it is highly unlikely that the coronavirus developed any other way other than through evolutionary processes. In other words, when I call into question the extent to which the current coronavirus crisis is a natural disaster, I'm not wishing to lend any credibility to the many conspiracy theories which have developed in the context of the current crisis. It is thought that the new coronavirus originating in bats most likely passed through an intermediary species before then infecting humans. But the precise path between bats and humans for SARS-CoV-2 remains unknown. It should be noted, however, that livestock farming provides a particularly fertile ground for processes of zoonotic viral evolution, or the process of viruses evolving from one host and into another, and then into humans. So livestock farming provides particularly fertile ground for this process of zoonosis, where viruses mutate and adapt to new species. Both pangolins and pigs, the most likely of the intermediary species which help the virus adapt to human hosts, are both intensively farmed in the Hubei province of China, where the coronavirus emerged from. It is true that a small number of scientists believe that the novel coronavirus strain may have its origins in a laboratory accident, perhaps where research into coronaviruses was taking place. Yet this remains a minority opinion in the scientific community, and should not stop us from paying serious attention to the very definite role which our social relations are having on creating the conditions for pandemics such as the current one, or else we'll continue to be ill-prepared for future pandemic events, which are projected to become more and more common throughout this century. So how does deforestation, urbanisation and industrialised agriculture combine together to make the likelihood of zoonotic jumps of bat diseases into humans make this more possible? A paper published with the Intergovernmental Science Policy Platform on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services notes how rampant deforestation, uncontrolled expansion of agriculture, intensive farming, mining and infrastructure development, as well as the exploitation of wild species, have created a perfect storm for the spillover of diseases. In other words, human forms of social and economic organisation create the conditions for these zoonotic viral evolutions. Already in 2018, a study published in Frontiers in Microbiology pointed out the connection between deforestation and urbanization in China and Southeast Asia, and the potential for the spillover of another novel coronavirus from bats. So the current coronavirus strain, known as SARS-CoV-2, is the second in a coronavirus originating in bats to infect humans. The first strain, SARS-1, also originating in bats, emerged in China in 2002 with a much higher fatality rate of around 10%. The authors of the 2018 study pointed out how the probability of human infection from bat coronaviruses was increasing in the region owing to environmental change and higher environmental pressure. The authors describe how, unlike natural environments which are highly selective, urban landscapes are acceptable to a wide range of bat species, usually not encountered together. House lights, for instance, attract a large number of insects at night, offering easy prey for bats. Houses and barns offer shelter for cave-dwelling bats, while orchards and fields attract fruit bats. Habitats force bats with differing biological needs into close proximity with one another, resulting in a higher concentration of biodiversity and biodiversity of bat-borne viruses. This in turn increases the risk of transmission of viruses to humans and domestic animals through direct contact or contamination by urine and feces. It is thought that bat coronaviruses are the cause of many diseases in animals. Furthermore, industrialized farming practices provide further conditions which facilitate viral evolution, with millions of animals crammed together with stressed and weakened immune systems. Enormous sheds into which livestock animals are crammed together also provide new and ideal cave-like habitats for bat species to roost together en masse, urinating and defecating onto livestock and their feed below. As Jaak Pabst and Rob Wallace write, planet Earth is largely planet farm at this point, in both biomass and land used. In terms of both biomass and land used. As a result, many pathogens previously held in check by long evolved forest ecologies are being sprung free, threatening the whole world. So the point that these different authors are making is that there's a connection between the kind of destruction of the natural environment, the creation of more urban forms of living, and the development of specific farming techniques which are premised upon the warehousing of animals for human consumption, all provide the perfect conditions for viruses to kind of jump host from wild animal to domesticated farm animal and then eventually to humans. COVID-19 is just the most recent example of deadly zoonotic viral evolution. Other recent examples include the AIDS pandemic, Ebola, the Zika virus, SARS-1, and Middle East respiratory syndrome. More and more today, ecologists, biologists, and social scientists are warning about more regular pandemics in the future, as the few remaining wild areas of the world are transformed by human economic development, reducing the available habitat left for animals and making zoonotic leaps more likely. The newspaper articles cited on the slide here are just some recent examples of commentary to this effect. Particularly dramatic is the spectre of the release of ancient viruses currently preserved in the permafrost and ice, but that will likely be released and exposed as a result of rising temperatures in the context of human-caused climate change. So I think it's possible to say that the context of the zoonotic transmission and the means by which the virus has spread shows that SARS-CoV-2 is very definitely a virus of our times, a product of our specific the specific kinds of social relations that we have today, and very definitely not a Chinese virus, as Donald Trump liked to call it. Not only are the processes of urbanization, deforestation, and industrial farming not specific to China, but urbanization in China and Southeast Asia have been central to the global economic recovery since the 2007-8 financial crisis. Spectacularly, between 2009 and 2012, more cement was used in China than the USA used in the whole of the 20th century combined. This is just one good indicator of the pace of urbanization taking place in China and Southeast Asia. Why is this important? Because it helps to understand the relationship between the particular kinds of social relations that we're developing in the world today and the origin of the coronavirus. The very processes which helped the global economy recover after the great financial crisis, urbanization and infrastructure building in China, are the very same processes which have increased the likelihood of pandemic events such as the current one. There are more reasons as well to dismiss Donald Trump and Donald Trump's description of the coronavirus as a specifically Chinese virus, not least the racist implications of Trump's argument. As Kim Moody writes in her essay on just-in-time capitalism and the spread of COVID-19, capitalism has accelerated the transmission of diseases. Historically, most epidemics have spread geographically through two common forms of human long-distance movement, trade and war. The timing, however, changed dramatically with the rise of capitalism. In today's era of just-in-time logistics, in which companies rely upon flexible and high-speed supply chains to bring commodities to market, it took the coronavirus mere days to spread from Wuhan to other Chinese cities hundreds of miles away. It took only 2 weeks to move beyond China, simultaneously along major supply chains, trade and air travel routes, first to East Asia, then the Middle East, Europe, North America and Brazil. The failure to see the way in which the coronavirus was a distinctly 21st century global social problem from the very start has hindered the response of many Western governments, leading to a particularly high and arguably avoidable death toll in countries such as Britain and the United States. As you're probably all aware, the social costs of the coronavirus crisis have not been borne equally around the world, nor within countries like. In the UK, deaths from coronavirus have been highly concentrated in occupations that have been working on the front line, caring and health, delivery workers, drivers, and those working in retail. Data published by the Office of National Statistics shows how just 5 occupations account for 17% of COVID-19 deaths amongst those of working age in England and Wales. Just 10 occupations account for 27% of these deaths, with 20 occupations accounting for as much as 40% of deaths from coronavirus amongst the working age population. The most dangerous professions in the current crisis are carers, taxi drivers, security guards, sales assistants, cleaners, nurses, and van drivers. For people of working age, in other words, COVID-19 is largely a workplace hazard. There is nothing natural about one's exposure to COVID-19, the likelihood of contracting COVID-19, or the likelihood of experiencing a severe incidence of the disease. For many people in Britain, the pandemic has meant choosing between economic survival and protecting themselves from the virus, a catch-22 situation made all the worse by lack of protections from government for people in insecure housing situations, such as renters. In both the UK and the United States, poor people and people from Black, Asian and other minority ethnic backgrounds are massively overrepresented in case statistics and are also more likely to experience severe or fatal cases of COVID-19. The Public Health England review shows how for people of Bangladeshi ethnicity in Britain, they had twice the risk of death when compared to people of white British ethnicity once contracting coronavirus. people of Chinese, Indian, Pakistani, or other Asian, Caribbean, and other Black ethnicities have between 10 and 50% higher risk of death when compared to white British people. Similarly, in the United States, the Centre for Disease Control records a similar overrepresentation of Black and African American and Hispanic and Native American people in terms of cases, hospitalizations, and deaths due to COVID-19. Black and African American people in the USA, as of the 18th of August 2020, were twice as likely to get COVID, 5 times more likely to be hospitalized, and twice as likely to die. Again, this has nothing to do with nature or the genetic background of ethnic minorities, and everything to do with the way our societies are organised and run. COVID-19 has exposed long-standing health inequalities in countries like the United States and the UK, which are largely the product of socioeconomic disadvantage. However, the forms of socioeconomic disadvantage experienced by minority groups, such as inequalities in wealth, housing, and employment, are conditioned by the way in which race and racism have structured labour markets, access to housing, and the reproduction of wealth inequality through inheritance. On top of this, in the UK, the government's hostile environment immigration policy discourages people from seeking medical help that they need, undermining wider public health initiatives. The feminist sociologist Tithi Bhattacharya describes how the coronavirus crisis has been tragically clarifying in 2 important respects. Firstly, it has clarified what feminist sociologists have been saying for a long time, which is that care work and life-making work are the essential work of society. Under lockdown, hardly anyone was saying that we needed stockbrokers and investment bankers, that we needed to keep these services open. Rather, they were saying, let's keep nurses working, cleaners working, garbage removal services open, food production ongoing, and so on. Food, fuel, shelter, cleaning, these are the essential services. But the crisis has also tragically revealed how undervalued these social roles are, despite their importance, and how much capitalism is dependent upon a devaluation of essential work, such as care work. Capitalism, writes Bhattacharya, is orientated towards maximising profit rather than maintaining life, and so has shown itself, thus far at least, to be completely incapable of dealing with the pandemic. To conclude my talk then, I hope I've shown you some of the ways in which I think that the origins, spread and impacts of COVID-19 are deeply bound up in the way in which we organise our lives, socially, economically and politically in the 21st century. Further, I hope I've shown you some more ways in which thinking sociologically can help us challenge some of the assumptions and ideas that structure the way we talk about, understand and understand the coronavirus and its effects. If you'd like to follow up some of the ideas I've discussed in this talk, I can really recommend the following 3 books: The Monster at Our Door by Mike Davis, Big Farms Make Big Flu by Rob Wallace, and the Kerr Manifesto on the Politics of Interdependence, a pamphlet put together by the Kerr Collective and published by Verso. The coronavirus crisis is not a natural disaster. Thanks very much.
Hi everyone, really sorry about the issues that we're having at the moment with the connection. We can't quite get Dr Joe Rigby back into the event, but what we will have to do for you, at least he's managed to finish his talk, so what we'll have to do for you all is we'll get all the questions sent over to him, and then we'll get the answers put on our website if that's okay. So if you go onto the website, we'll get them put up onto there on the page of this kitchen sessions, if that's all right. Again, all I can do is apologise. What can we do at the moment? Everything's online, and he really is struggling to get back in. I'm not 100% sure why, but hopefully you've all enjoyed today's session. And we can get the questions answered for you shortly, okay? If anyone does have any more questions, please pop them in the chat now. because what we will do, like I said, is just get them sent over to Joe for you, and then we'll get them out published onto our website. All right then, we will wait just after I end this session now anyway, in case anyone has got any more questions. Really sorry again about that, can't apologise enough. Thank you very much for your patience anyway, waiting whilst we try to sort that out. Thank you. Bye everyone.